colors to work with. Today I'm going to be creating 5 different cards for you to show you the versatility of her inks. So to get started, I'm going to be doing some stamping using my mini Misty here, and I'm going to show off all 8 of the ink colors while I'm getting started. I'm going to be using this tree stamp from the Winter Wonderland stamp, and I'm going to stamp it in all 8 colors, so it's really easy for you to check out exactly what colors are which and what they look like on paper. Alright, so let's get started. I'm going to start with the Juniper Mist ink. And I'm going to ink this up a couple of times and stamp it a couple of times. Now, these inks are a little bit different, I find, than Catherine's Party Collection. Catherine's Party Collection are very vibrant colors, and they're the most vibrant inks I own. Now, these ones here obviously are kind of a darker, subtler tone. They're a lower saturation, so they're a little bit different as far as that vibrancy goes. But they do stamp very well. They stamp solid very well, and they are really fantastic colors. I love that I can add these to my collection. This color here is called Daydream. And I also wanted to say that the Party Collection and this Spa Release collection actually don't match each other. So what's really cool about Catherine's inks is that they come in collections. So each collection coordinates with each other, and this is the second collection to be released. So all of these inks here coordinate with each other, and all of the Party Collection coordinate with each other. So very neat. This stamp here this color here is Eucalyptus, and then I'm going to be moving on to Green Tea, and I'm just going to speed up the video slightly. Now, even though there's many dark colors in this collection, there's always some light ones as well. So this green tea here is a really nice shade of sort of an olive green color, green tea color. And it's really nice in the sense that you get really great, more natural tones for your foliage and flora. This ink here is called Sauna, that's the yellow ink. And then we have Mandarin Spice. And the last ink color that I'm going to put down is Peppermint Scrub. So as I was saying, you have a nice combination of very natural colors. So when you're stamping all your flowers and leaves, before your options were kind of more of those cutesy colors, and now you have a little bit more of a natural palette as well, so you get just so much versatility out of the inks. Now this last ink here is the Royal Treatment. This is the 8th ink. I'm going to set all my backgrounds off to the side after I'm finished and finish them all up at the end of the card. So this is just basic stamping, nothing too special. I'm going to be using this mandala stamp here to create different patterns. I am going to speed up the video because a lot of this is just placement. Now I did have to go ahead and use my large Misty because as you can see I'm kind of struggling fitting the mandalas here on here. That's where the mini Misty kind of lacks in its versatility, is when you have really big stamps. But overall I like my mini Misty for stamping just on card panels. But when it comes to stamping off of the cardstock, I generally prefer my regular Misty. So these color combinations are my favorite. The Royal Treatments, Juniper Mist, and the Peppermint Scrub are my favorite combination. These 3 colors are so rich. They're so bold. They're great for winter colors or dark colors, even masculine cards. And stamping these with the mandalas in different sort of arrangements from blue, red, purple, purple, red, blue, red, purple, blue, it's been so much fun. So after I finished stamping the background with many different mandala combinations, I went ahead and filled in some of the little gaps. Here's a look at the 2 cards when they're all finished, and of course I'll show you what I did on the fronts of them as well when we get there. Now, not only can you stamp regular stamps, but you can actually watercolor as well. So I'm using a technique that I saw on Christina Werner's channel the other day. Now, she used markers, some Tombow markers, on top of a Ziploc bag in order to create a watercolor background. And I thought that was so cool. So I decided to give it a try with my inks to see if it would work in a similar way. And it definitely is really neat. So I used Juniper Mist, I used Royal Treatment, Peppermint Scrub, and then I decided to add in the Daydream color to my color combination as well. So I just simply stamped them and smushed them onto my Ziploc bag, and that was just filling in my background. Once everything was all filled in and I had some pretty good ink coverage on here, I decided to use my distress sprayer here to spray some water onto the Ziploc bag, and I'm doing this in just regular speed right now so that you can see exactly what I'm doing before I speed things up for the second layer. So all I do is you take it and you carefully flip it around and then smush it onto your cardstock. Now the trick is for this is to just move the color around by moving the Ziploc. It's really, really flexible. It's a great like malleable material, and so it's really easy to just get the colors to blend in. Now the key to this though is using colors that blend naturally together. You don't want to have any colors that really create a brown muddy color when you're finished. So you can go ahead and you can leave it after this is finished with the first background, or of course you can go ahead and you can add a second layer, which is what I decided to do. So what you need to do is once you take off the sandwich bag, you need to dry your cardstock, and then you can start with your second layer. So this is kind of what it looks like. It doesn't look too great at the moment, so I thought I was going to use the second background and once it's dry. Now I used my Ranger Heat tool to ensure that this was dry, and then I went in with the background. Now you have to remember you're flipping it over, so you have to do the colors opposite of where they are. You're going to try and place them approximately where they were before. And then I'm going to go ahead and move all those colors around once again, trying to focus on some of the areas that maybe didn't get a lot of color. And then I just used a stamp chamois or a paper towel you can use to just pick up any sort of puddles that are there. Once I dried the background, I was pretty happy with it, and I think the texture of the sandwich bag creates a really neat look as well. For my second background, I went with some other colors. I went with sauna, green tea, I went with eucalyptus and mandarin spice, and that actually turned out really pretty. I loved that subtle background as well. Once my two backgrounds were prepped, I went ahead and I was using some of the stamps here from the Wild Garden stamp set, and I'm going to ink those up in Midnight ink and stamp them onto my cardstock. Now, because I was using watercolor cardstock, I think I forgot to mention that. I'm using watercolor cardstock. It is Strathmore watercolor paper, and I am using the textured side. So it does take a couple of tries to actually get the ink solid. So if you don't want this and you don't have a stamp positioner so that you can stamp in the same spot more than once, I would then suggest to use the less textured side. Since I'm sure you're all stamping experts, I'm just going ahead and adding a couple more florals as well as some butterflies to the front of this card. And then I'm going in with the purple card and I'm going ahead and adding a couple of florals there and a sentiment as well. Now here's a final look at those two cards. For my last little trick, I'm going to do some ink blending, so I'm going to mask off an area. It's a rectangle die that I use to use the inside of this die as well as the outside. So I was able to stamp a border around the edge. Now in the end, I wasn't really a big fan of how I created this card, but I do like the background after I finished taking off the mask. I think it looks really neat, and you could of course use that anytime for your cards. Just because I didn't include it in the final one didn't mean I didn't want to show off this technique. So look how great those inks blend. They look fantastic. And this is almost like a little galaxy palette, this Juniper Mist, Peppermint Scrub, and the Royal Treatment. I think that's probably why I like it so much. So now I use the outside of this die cut here. So when I cut the masking paper, I cut it to 5 1/4 by 4. And then I die cut a smaller rectangle and was able to use this border so that when I peeled it off, I created the border on the outside as a mask, and then for the first card I had the inside as the mask. So you can get the most out of your masking paper. So now going into just some final touches. So I'm just going to show all the backgrounds again. So after I was finished doing all my stamping and all of my cutting, I had cut down some of these panels a little bit with the stitched rectangle die so that I had a nice big white border around the edge. I love that white border and how it brings out the white behind those mandalas. It makes that color just pop. This is my favorite card out of the 5 of them. Then we have the tree stamp, which I think is just really cool once it's all cut down. It's such a different background and really colorful and fun. Could be used as a masculine card as well, and that's what I like most about it. Then I'm going to add my watercolor panels. When I'm adding watercolor panels, I really like to make sure I adhere the very edges of the paper because sometimes the watercolor panel will warp slightly if you're using watercolor paper. Not as much as you would warp, of course, if you were using regular paper that can absorb water, but I like to hold that down for a few moments with my hand to make sure it sticks nicely and doesn't actually end up manipulating my card base. Another thing I like to do is stick it under a heavy book for a day or two after it's all finished just to flatten it out. And you'll see this happy birthday card as well is a landscape card, and I really love the way that it turned out. Now for time purposes, I'm just going to show you the final touches. I don't want to keep you here all day. I went ahead and I stamped the Get Well Soon. This is from one of my older sets of Catherine Pooler, and I thought I would just, it looks so perfect against the elegant background. I just needed to use it, even though it's not a part of the new release or some of the stamp of approval that's being released as well today. So I am going ahead and just adding those there, and I will link to all these supplies in the video description below. Alright, so just adding some final touches, I went ahead and cut out this congratulations stamp as well as a thinking of you, which I stamped in some of the brand new inks. You can see how crisp those are. It's not too often I get super crisp colors when stamping text, and these inks are very good for that, I have to say. And these things just make me really excited about inks when they just really work properly. So here's a final look at the cards, and here are some close-ups of the photos. At the very end of the video, I have some suggested videos as well, which you can check out some of my videos that promote the party collection of Catherine Pooler's inks. And you're welcome to subscribe to my channel as well. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I hope this video was informative for you, and you'll check out the blog hop over on my blog. Thanks for watching.